Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And I'd like to take this opportunity, therefore, if I may, to speak about a title which has been re-released by the Criterion Collection at SPY number 842. So this is a title that currently exists in the physical media catalog of the Criterion Collection. However, this time, on the occasion of this year 2023, Criterion has re-released this title utilizing the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray format option. And I'm speaking of a work which is described as being from the year 1990. And the name of the filmmaker is Akira Kurosawa. And the name of the work is, in Japanese, Yume, or as it's known in English, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. The truly great and majestic work from one of the great filmmaker artists extraordinaire in cinema history, which is the filmmaker artist Akira Kurosawa. Here we have a film which is credited to Akira Kurosawa as director and writer, written and directed by Akira Kurosawa, and also included in the great crew of and gathering of artists and collaborators. We have, for example, creative consultant Ishiro Honda, music by Shinichiro Ikebe, the cinematography by Takao Saito and Shoji Ueda. Teruyo Nogami is production manager, and executive producer is Steven Spielberg and others. And when we turn our attention to the brilliant, great cast, we have people and performers and actors such as Akira Terao and Mieko Harada and Hisashi Igawa and Chishu Ryu and Martin Scorsese and others, Yoshitaka Zushi and others. This is a real wonderful and brilliant gathering of artists, actors, and performers, and many of whom have been working with Kurosawa in the past and have worked with Kurosawa in the past. So it's wonderful to see them gathered here again for this brilliant film. Again, it's known in Japanese as Yume. The word Yume can be translated into English as dreams, or as it's often known in English, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. It is a fascinating film. Again, on the occasion of this year, 2023, we are seeing the Criterion Collection re-releasing this title into the physical media catalog. It already exists in a great Blu-ray from Criterion, but this year we see a re-release employing the 4K UHD format. And indeed, the 4K disc is what I have in the player, and we'll talk a little bit about the presentation aspect of this new release a little bit later in this video. But first, if I may, let me speak a little bit to the plot or story structure of this fascinating and curious work. And I think we are struck perhaps immediately by virtue of the title of the film and also the entry into the film, and then also what greets us almost from the get-go, which is a title card, which will also greet us as we progress through the film. Konna yume o mita, which can be translated into I saw a dream, or I had this type of dream. And then it proceeds, the film proceeds to give us these short stories, these vignettes, if you will, that have certain aspects of folklore and tradition, that also have certain aspects of childhood memory and family and longing and loss, that also lead into stories of maybe the supernatural and the and fantasy, that are also embedded into the way that humanity and nature are engaged with each other, or clash against each other, or perhaps are codependent on each other, etc. And all the while we have these vignettes, these short stories that, as I say, could be viewed in a number of ways. They could be viewed in a type of hermetically sealed fashion, each independent of each other. Or there might be said to be a type of spiritual or thematic through line, some kind of connective tissue that could be said to be running through each of these short story vignettes. And perhaps one clue or one way of interpreting this is by looking at these films, or that as these short story works, these vignettes, as dreams themselves, dreams dreamt up by Kurosawa. And we can get this information, I think, from the very sort of subjective nature of these on the one hand, and certain clues and maybe character positionings that we might, as viewers, interpret through some form or another to be maybe analogous to or otherwise connected in some way or another, perhaps closely or maybe indirectly, to Kurosawa's life and his own memories. So in many ways, I think this is a film that is asking us, or perhaps suggesting itself to us, to be a type of a wonderful, brilliant cinematic manifestation of the say, perspective of Kurosawa. So the Kurosawa dream logic subjective viewpoint made manifest in this wonderful objective style known as cinema. And I think that type of interpretation is very, very long-lasting and very productive, especially when you get into the content of some of these vignettes, and we'll get to that in a moment. But also, I would say, too, that it does welcome us, the viewers, into our own, maybe, subjective viewpoints and our own grappling and reckoning with aspects of, say, our own childhood and memory and maybe trauma, and also handling with external forces, and also how to grapple with those external forces in an internal psychological perspective. So I want to suggest from the outset that this film, Dreams, I think, has a way of enveloping in a wonderful way the type of viewpoint of the artist at work, while also allowing us, I think, the wonderful room and scope to explore this from our own subjective viewpoint. So this is, I think, a very a powerful and majestic work on those levels, and indeed others. If we were to speak very briefly too about the vignettes, I think we can see, for example, when we get from the initial vignette of a young boy and the rain, and some dealing with folklore and tradition that may turn sudden and abrupt, allowing for an exploration into the viewpoint of the child and family structures and folklore, and how this might turn quite sinister and indeed quite strict and severe on a moment's notice, while also capturing a sense of beauty and the mysterious and the enigmatic in terms of Japanese traditions, or what could be said to be Japanese traditions, as made manifest in work like this, the very get-go, leading into some interesting examinations as to the traditions of orchard, the peach orchard, and the blossoms, and family traditions that are linked also to memory and family life and childhood, and also a sense of yearning, which could have its links to Kurosawa's own background and tradition. We'll get to those comments when we get to some aspects of the supplements here, including the great commentary track. And then we get to some instances or vignettes where we have an adult figure seemingly at the center, portrayed by Akira Terao. And so we can see, or we can have through these vignettes that welcome us with this adult figure at the center, stories about the blizzard and the snow, and a survival story, and then a story about a tunnel and a vision or specter that leads to some connections, perhaps disturbing and uncomfortable, having to do with the wartime, and then also dealing with a type of meeting or an encounter with an artist hero, from the admiration of art in a museum all the way to the actual falling into and becoming enveloped into the world of the art itself and the artist himself, of Vincent van Gogh. And then going into some explorations as to the risks and maybe the impending threat nuclear destruction then leads to perhaps a vision that is quite apocalyptic, that sees the warping and thwarting and mutation of nature in a way that could also be said to be a mutation of psychological impulses of the human spirit. But speaking of psychological impulses of the human spirit, then we go into a type of trajectory where we have a dream or vignette that could be said to be perhaps espousing or trying to reposition Kurosawa's viewpoint and sensibilities into the realm of the optimistic and the hopeful. And seeing that play out in this village dream landscape and the river and the way in which humanity and nature seem to be coexisting or codependent on each other in this peaceful way. So this is the general trajectory, one can say, of the various vignettes in a story structure. From that description, I think one can look at these vignettes again as hermetically sealed, independent stories, which I think is a very, very great way of looking at this on the one hand, because it also allows for a way in which we see the craft and the mise en scène and the production values also shine forth in that way. But those, I think that outlook is also possible through another alternative interpretation, that being as a type of, say, journey through the subjective life and perspective of looking back, which we can say is from Kurosawa's own perspective. After all, we begin with dreams that are figured in on childhood and childhood perspectives, and then we go into aspects of a grown-up personage that is also dealing with certain aspects of, say, past and even Japanese history, socio-political history, again, in the context, for example, of the war, for example. And then we go into certain sensibilities of the artist and the portrait of the artist in the context of Van Gogh. But also we return to perhaps a modern sensibility type of maybe socio-political message, direct or indirect, a type of undercurrent when we get into dealings and aspects and discussions of the potential of or the potential risks of nuclear holocaust, both a potential and also perhaps the frightening apocalyptic aftermath. But then we also see a reintegration of this idea of an approach to nature and humanity, which I think has also been very inherent in Kurosawa's outlook, if we were to take his filmography up to Dreams as a type of basis for our reading of his philosophical outlook on life in the world. So in that way, this film Dreams could be said to also be linked to Kurosawa's own outlook. And in that way, I think it's very tempting and very good interpretation to see this as, in many ways, a type of summing up of Kurosawa's life and career up to 1990. After all, prior to 1990, we have seen a long and illustrious career from Kurosawa. We've seen so many films that have been landmark touchstones in cinema. And indeed, when we look at a film like Dreams, not only can we get a sense of certain autobiographical touches of Kurosawa's life and childhood memory, which are also, I think, brought up so distinctly and so profoundly in, for example, the commentary track. But also we can see aspects and linkages to Kurosawa's past filmography, including, for example, some of the actors that appear in this body of work that is Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. And so we see certain thematic touches. The aspect of integration of humanity and nature is a strong theme in Kurosawa's body of work. We also see the impending threat of nuclear holocaust, which is also a very strong theme in Kurosawa's work, both past and indeed even subsequent to Dreams. We also see the way in which sort of the body politic, as expressed in sort of the ebbs and flows of the micro movements of so the micro movements and the macro movements, and how this idea is either expressed in terms of, say, panic, as we see in the maybe the dreams that could be said to be quote unquote apocalyptic in nature, or we can see it in a sense of society working hand in hand with nature that we see in some of the other dreams as well. So we see the movements of groups. We also see the movements of individuals, and we see how the individual may or may not go with the flow of the group in dreams like the tunnel and the like. And also the individual will is very important too in dreams like with respect to the blizzard, etc., as well as with respect to the Vincent van Gogh dream itself. So in all these aspects, I think we can see touchstones and linkages to Kurosawa's past body of work in some form or another, thus inviting the very tempting and indeed very reasonable interpretation of this film Dreams, or one of the interpretations, as being a summation, a great celebration of Kurosawa's life and art. And I think that is a very great way of looking at this. That being said, it is also possible to look at Dreams as its own maybe new chapter, new frontier in Kurosawa's body of work, because the structure is indeed quite radical, one can say, in the context of Kurosawa's work. We have seen in the past Kurosawa dealing with dream logic in his films, that's for sure. For example, Kagemusha or the like, and we have seen this type of treatment of a type of use of fantasy. Even in socio-political conscious films that he has made. So this is indeed nothing new in the oeuvre of Kurosawa, but what I do want to suggest is the way that it's structured with this very evident reliance on dream logic from the get-go, thus allowing for a type of free-form movement in and out, a type of breaking of say, the physical boundaries of a type of physics in favor of a dream logic, a lyrical approach to these stories and these stories and environments, even when relying on a certain aspect of quote-unquote the real and the embodiment of nature, etc. I mean, there is always a sense of the wonderful application of theatricality, which I think is such a stylistic strong point of this film and indeed other films of Kurosawa's oeuvre. But I do want to suggest that this combination and stylistic approach could be said to be very experimental and very, very fresh, and very much forging a new type of chapter in the Kurosawa filmography perspective, thus making this its own way a distinct film. It's a summation film, but it's also a distinct film on its own merits. And I do want to say that I think it's very possible to look at this film in both of those modes simultaneously, because it is very experimental. It does have a type of free-form logic that almost defies strict narrative conventions of filmmaking storytelling. So I find that to be very wonderful, because it allows for a wonderful breadth of interpretation on the part of the viewer. So how do we connect these dreams? Or perhaps we don't need to connect them. We can look at them on their own merits and enjoy them for what they are, which I think is also equally rewarding. So I do want to suggest that this is a great place to go in terms of a new chapter of Kurosawa's career, as well as a great summing up of what he has seen, a summation of what we've seen before in terms of his life and his work. Speaking of which, we do get the great trademarks that are a part of the Kurosawa genius. For example, his use of materials and environments, and I mentioned this before, his use of the theatrical and artificial in a way that is, I think, harkening back to certain traditions of theater and plays and drama. Japanese traditional theater, no theater is often expressed in the discussion of Kurosawa's works, and I think Dreams is a great example of this. For example, the ways in which makeup is used on the actors' faces. Mask-like makeup is used to extenuate and exaggerate aspects of the folklore tradition, and also the idea of the specter of the past. So it has a warm glow to it, as well as having a dark, sinister edge to it, and I think that is a great way of Kurosawa's use of traditional aspects of theater and applying them to in a way that could be said to be enhancing those aspects of tradition while also augmenting the sense of of modernity. So I find that type of malleability and flexibility on the part of Kurosawa's ability. Crafting using these traditions of theater to be really on display in full force in a film like Dreams. He also relies on on the long take, which is a way of augmenting, quote unquote, the reality of the situation. So he relies on certain aspects of theater and artifice and color in a very wonderfully exaggerated stylistic way. Rich colors that almost defy nature in films, in sequences like the Vincent van Gogh sequence, for example. But at the same time, that is used to also enhance aspects that are inherent within nature itself. So he uses wonderful ways of highly stylized use of color, for example. But he also relies on the exquisite things in nature themselves. So I draw your attention to the way that, for example, wind is employed when we see things blowing in the wind. I mean, this is a very natural effect. Or the way that an insect flies across the screen at a very key moment, or the way that the water ripples. We have this idea of we are seeing nature captured as is, but captured in a way and handled in a way with a deftness and grace, guided by Kurosawa's hand, while combined with aspects of, say, the stylized and the theatrical, and that also comes to one's attention in how visual effects are used as well. I mean, there's a great, lovely way in which visual effects are applied, the way that people are able to jump into paintings, or a type of a superimposition of details and ideas that extend to the ghastly and to the dark and to the horrific. I do want to suggest that this film, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, could be said to be a type of potpourri of the many aspects of Kurosawa's styles, which is a reminder too of how versatile an artist Kurosawa was and is. And it's great to see that versatility, is on display in full force in a film like Dreams, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, in all of its great splendor and glory and beauty and grace. And I should also mention too for example, the great use of cast, the great performances. We see a number of people that have appeared, as I mentioned, in previous Kurosawa works, Higashi Igawa and Akira Terao and Mieko Harada, for example. For those who know past Kurosawa works, might recognize them as being featured in previous works, such as Ran, for example, from the mid-1980s. We also see people that also, in their own ways, bring with them a huge type of cinematic legacy and meaning by their very presence. So I mentioned, for example, the appearance by the great legendary actor Chishu Liu. And also, I should mention too the appearance, the very memorable appearance by Martin Scorsese in this role, in this work as well, which also brings with it a lot of, I think, self-reference, and also calling back to a type of artistic-based construction, which I think is meant to evoke a sense of the stylistic and the fantasy, and the emphasis and great emphasis on dream logic and lyricism, while also portraying something of the earnest and honest nature. And I like Scorsese's performance here. It has a rugged nature of it. We're watching something that you can get a sense. We know it's Scorsese, so it's almost like Scorsese speaking for Scorsese, who's also standing in for Kurosawa, who's also playing a role in terms of the portrait of the artist. So as viewed by the I figure in this work, which could himself be a stand-in for Kurosawa as well. So we have all these parallels that are running just by the very nature of the presence of an artist like Scorsese in this work. So I like how this film has this welcoming way of allowing for this wonderful, playful, circuitous viewpoint and perspective, and the like. So for these and other reasons, my dear friends, I think this film, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, Yume, is a sort of feast for the senses, and also a caring work, and an earnest and honest work, and a very intimate and quiet work that is also majestic and reaches daring heights along the way. It does have a very challenging story structure, as I was trying to allude to earlier in this discussion. So for those who have not yet seen a Kurosawa work, this may or may not be the first place that one might go to watch a Kurosawa work. If it is the first place you go, then again, you are in for a real wonderful, great, healthy, challenging ride that that has many possibilities of interpretation. So I hope that you enjoyed along the way. And again, for those who are watching this with the background of having seen other Kurosawa works, again, one can view this in in I think a myriad of different possible interpretations, both in the context of Kurosawa's filmography, in the context of Kurosawa's life, and or in the context of how it stands on its own, which is a brilliant work of art, a gathering of these vignettes, dreams as it were. This is the work which is Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. The Criterion Collection has released this film, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, this year in the year 2023. And this is, again, spine number 842. And this time, however, it already exists in the Criterion Collection current physical media catalog in a great Blu-ray release, again at that same spine number. But this time this year, they have re-released this film, but employing the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray format. So it's 2 discs, a Blu-ray disc with the film and supplements, and then the 4K UHD disc with the film and the commentary. But the supplements will be found on the Blu-ray disc, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I have in the machine right now the disc, which is the 4K UHD disc. Let me now turn to the booklet, which I've removed prior to the start of recording this video, because I want to refer, it's the staple booklet again, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But on page 30, it says about the master, and I quote, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. This digital master was created from the 35mm original camera negative, which was scanned in 4K resolution on a Laser Graphics director film scanner under the supervision of cinematographer Shoji Ueda. The 2.0 surround soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm magnetic track. Please be sure to enable Dolby Pro Logic decoding on your receiver to properly play the Dolby 2.0 surround soundtrack. On the 4K Ultra HD disc, this feature is presented in HDR high dynamic range. On the Blu-ray, it is presented in high definition SDR standard dynamic range. So I've seen this film a number of times prior to the Criterion Blu-ray release from some years back, and then prior to this now recent 4K release. I've seen it a number of times. I think for me, again, up to now, the Criterion Blu-ray was always for me the place to go. I mean, I love that Blu-ray. I think it was, at the time, for me, the best way for me to watch this film, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. It just was head and shoulders above anything else I had seen before in terms of VHS offerings and the like, DVD offerings and the like. So when I now watch the 4K UHD disc, I don't, to be perfectly honest, given taking into consideration the aspects of the 4K technology, I don't see per se any large jumps of difference between what I'm used to seeing on the Blu-ray and what I now see in the 4K UHD offering. I think in terms of the 4K UHD technology application, I think it's applied very, very well, very strongly. I mean, this film, in terms of a visual and audio treat, has a type of way it's reflected when I watch the 4K UHD, which is outstanding, absolutely outstanding. So I'm very pleased with this offering. And but I should say too that, again, I don't necessarily see any huge jump because the Blu-ray is already very high quality as it was. I don't see, to my own amateur eyes and ears, I don't detect any huge jump to, again, which suggests to me that if you want to get the 4K UHD disc, and for instance, maybe you haven't gotten this title yet and you want to get this title, I think this would be a great opportunity. And if you are into the 4K UHD technology when watching the films that you get, I think this is a great opportunity to watch. I mean, it's very, very enjoyable in the 4K UHD format. That being said, I'm still very much a fan of the Blu-ray format. I think the Blu-ray still looks great and still is quite exquisite. So that's also my way to say that if you have the Blu-ray of this and you are satisfied with the Blu-ray of this, then maybe you may or may not necessarily need to get the 4K UHD release of this. So again, I don't see any huge leaps here, difference between the two from my vantage point, from my subjective viewpoint. So in other words, I'm very pleased with the Blu-ray still, and I'm also very pleased with the 4K UHD. And I don't necessarily detect anything new or quite vastly different. That's my way to say, again, if you are happy with the Blu-ray, that's great, and of course you can continue to enjoy that, as I certainly will. If you are into this film such that you also want to get the 4K offering, then please go for it as well. I mean, I have the 4K offering as well. I'm a big fan of Kurosawa. I'm a big fan of this film, so that might be an option to have. Or if you are into Kurosawa and want to get this film but haven't gotten it yet, and you are into the 4K technology, this might be a good opportunity to do so. So again, it's one of those conversations where it's nice to see the 4K offering being made, but also it also is a reminder too of how strong the Blu-ray presentation was to begin with. So that's my general approach to this. I should say too, however, that as a type of maybe a postscript comment. If we see this offering as a 4K option of a Kurosawa film, then what does that mean possibly, potentially, maybe, who knows, fingers crossed, of any other 4K offerings of the Kurosawa oeuvre from Criterion or elsewhere? I mean, it would be interesting to see. I mean, from my own experience in Japan, I do know that there is some movement in the 4K front with certain films in the Kurosawa canon, but we shall see. We shall see if this is leading to something, or perhaps it is a one-off. We're not sure, but it would be nice to see other titles as well, and if there are going to be new restorations and the like, which could be presented in physical media options and choices like Criterion's, then that would be interesting indeed. So it's nice to speculate on that front. But I know the world of rights and the world of restorations is a very complex one. So let me just stop my comments on that topic here, but then return to this point of Dreams as the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray format option here. It's a great option, it's a great format, and it's a reminder too of how great this had already looked in the Criterion catalog release from years back, but it's also good to have it here for 2023. And so now let us turn our attention to what we can find in terms of supplements or other extras with respect to this Criterion release. So the first thing we should turn to is the commentary track. I still have the 4K UHD disc in the machine for purposes of this discussion. Now I should take a step back and say there are supplements that are included with this release. They have their own supplement section on the Blu-ray disc. So when we talk about those a little bit later, we'll turn our attention to the Blu-ray disc. There is also a commentary track. The commentary track is made available on both the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc. The film is available on both the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc. The commentary track is available as an option for both the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc. The supplements, however, will be available only on the Blu-ray disc, not the 4K disc. So as you can see, as I have the 4K discs menu on display, there is the option to select the movie, and then there's also the option to select the commentary track. So regarding the commentary track, this is described as being: this audio commentary features film scholar Stephen Prince and was recorded for the Criterion Collection in New York in 2016. Stephen Prince is one of the great academic scholars and one of the great experts when it comes to Japanese cinema and indeed the cinema of Kurosawa. Stephen Prince has written, I think, a number of texts and articles and books on the subject, including the topic of the films of Kurosawa, which I've had the great pleasure of being able to read and learn from and study from. And I like Stephen Prince's demeanor and manner. There is a type of there's a type of welcome tone to his voice, which I really appreciate when listening to his commentary tracks. And here is a great example of that. I think this is a great commentary track for a number of reasons. I think for me, one of the strengths of this commentary track is, again, as I was trying to mention earlier, to point out how this film is very type of experimental and also to point out the aspects of the sort of production values of this, or the production history of this, and also to point out ways in which this film could be said to be linking to Kurosawa's own life and own memories in childhood. Stephen Prince brings up certain biographical anecdotes that really lend a lot of significance and a lot of further double meaning and triple meaning and potential further nuanced interpretation to a lot of the scenes that we see, in particular the scenes involving childhood and early adolescence or early adulthood, and about Kurosawa's own family and upbringing and members of his family and things that happened to him when he was a young child, etc. So these aspects of Stephen Prince's commentary are brilliant. And also he brings, too, connections not just with Kurosawa's life and biography, but also connections with, say, Kurosawa's own maybe philosophical underpinnings, events that might have affected him and affected his outlook on his life and his art, including aspects of the war, including aspects of certain natural disasters that occurred throughout Japanese history, and also both on the micro and macro level. And that also, I think, that also gives a lot of potential further, say, insight into how to read some of these dream vignettes from a socio-political and cultural perspective. And Stephen Prince does that so deftly, so skillfully. And then also the links to Kurosawa's filmography. I mean, he brings up points that could be said, and actors and performers that appear that could be said to be linked to this aspect of Kurosawa's filmography, that film directed by Kurosawa in the past, this film directed by Kurosawa in the past, that, etc. So it's such a great, rich commentary track. I love this very much. I might be biased because I'm a fan of Stephen Prince's work already, and I've learned so much from his engagement with, for example, the Kurosawa over the course of a number of writings. So. But to hear his take on this it's very rewarding, very filled with a lot of knowledge, and it's a great time all around. So this is the Stephen Prince commentary track, again from 2016, and it's still being made available for purposes of this new Criterion release. So please check it out with the commentary track if you haven't done so already. And once again, the commentary track can be made available when you watch the film either on the 4K disc or on the Blu-ray disc. So now what I've done is I have put in to the player here the Blu-ray disc. And so as we recall, this is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition, which means that we have two discs in this release from Criterion this year. The 4K disc, which I had before, and now the Blu-ray disc, which I now have in the player right now. And this is the menu as part of this. And we can see that as part of the Blu-ray disc, we have, in addition to what we saw in the 4K offerings in terms of the content, we also have an extra option of the supplements. So once again, the supplements will be found on the Blu-ray disc. So what do we have in terms of supplements? These are things that we have seen before in the previous Criterion release from some years back, but it's nice to have them continued on here or repeated here, because again, they were great before and they continue to be great now. So what do we have? The first is Making of Dreams. And we have what's described as this 150-minute documentary directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi, House, on the set of Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, features behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with cast and crew. This is a great, super long, so wonderfully, its own feature film documentary making of. And it's great, and it's from the artist Obayashi, who is shown to be so respectful of Kurosawa's works, and seeing the artist work as the artist and the crew, cast and crew, are making this film in this it could be said to be, again, this interview process is also behind-the-scenes footage type of documentary display here. So it's we're seeing it as it's being made, and so it's this wonderful process that we see, and meeting the actors for the first time, working with the actors. Some of the actors also express how they feel about working with Kurosawa, the legacy of Kurosawa's films before, leading up to him working on set, as it were, right now, and the like. And what I love too is it does provide to an index, so we can have its own set of chapters And you can already see from the chapter list how you have just it goes through everything. It's so it's so wonderful, and it's nice to see too some of the comments from Kurosawa and company. Again, the precise nature of certain scenes, how they are timed, how they are corrected, how they are shot, how they are rehearsed, and you can see the hard work and dedication that goes into even trying to capture a brief moment on cinema. The intensity of preparation that goes into this, and the care and the real preparation, which the real high stakes preparation, I'd say, which could again fall apart with just a very minor miss or missed detail. It's that type of intensity, but it's this is the artist at work. So this documentary. It's very magical, and it feels very hand-on. It feels very handmade, which I also admire very much. And it has a type of sincerity and approach to it that feels very honest and direct. So please check this out if you can. It's 150 minutes. It's so glorious in what it shows. So it's its own film in and of itself. So this is Making of Dreams. And that's not all, because we have a supplement which is called Kurosawa's Way. This is described as released in 2011. Kurosawa's Way is a 52-minute documentary directed by Kurosawa's longtime translator Catherine Kado, who interviews 11 major film directors on how Kurosawa's films have influenced their own work. The interviewees include Bernardo Bertolucci, Clint Eastwood, Abbas Kiarostami, Hayao Miyazaki, and Martin Scorsese, who discusses playing the role of Vincent van Gogh in Akira Kurosawa's Dreams and others. I mean, there are a number of filmmakers who are discussing the way in which Kurosawa's work over the years has influenced them, and not just influenced, but also how they admire some of these touchstones along the way. So certain films are discussed, which I think is quite remarkable. Ikiru, for example, which is a very key work from the 1950s from Kurosawa, and the way in which aspects of, say, thematic qualities of a discussion of sort of humanism. That is, I think, very much emboldened in the stylistic structurings of Kurosawa's works in films like Ikiru and others. I think are on display in how the directors and filmmakers and artists here are showing their appreciation of Kurosawa's works, while also showing these specific moments that really pave the way, were their own cinema journeys, in a manner of speaking. So, as well as showing the contemporary the contemporary reactions to Kurosawa's works even now, or at the time, contemporaneous around the time of Dreams, for example, and the attention that he was given as an artist from the cinema community the world over. The awards, for example, and the attention from, for example, Cannes Film Festival community, I think being one of the highlights here, of many highlights, and discussions of works such as Rashomon, for example. It's great to see also some of my favorite filmmakers. Well, for example, Theo Angelopoulos is also featured here, which is a great thing, as well as other filmmakers. So this is a lovely documentary. It's also maybe an appreciation of Kurosawa, the artist and the human being, and also a type of, say, a celebration of his legacy. From the contemporary viewpoint of filmmaker artists, both past and present. So Kurosawa's Way, La Voix, from 2011, approximately 52 minutes. So please check this out if you can. It's really wonderful. But that's not all, because we also have Teruyo Nogami. And it's described here as Teruyo Nogami worked closely with Akira Kurosawa as his script supervisor for more than 40 years. In this interview, recorded for the Criterion Collection in Japan in July 2016, Nogami recalls her relationship with the great director and the difficult process of bringing Akira Kurosawa's dreams to fruition. Yes, so Teruyo Nogami is one of the key artistic collaborators in the Kurosawa group, as it were. Nogami is often featured in a number of these documentaries and interviews, and in fact, I saw her speak in a live Q&A once in New York a number of years back. It was one of the great highlights of my own personal cinema journey. I was sitting in the audience, and it was great to see her on the stage. It was really wonderful. And so to have another of such great interviews here, like we have, courtesy of the Criterion collection here. It's a 17-minute interview. This is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You can see even now the respect and reverence that she shows towards Akira Kurosawa, and the scope of their professional relationship and the artistic collaboration, all the way back to films that she mentions like Rashomon, which was circa 1950. So it spans it spans a whole almost a lifetime of art and film and living. So and then she does go into certain details about this film, how the funding was secured and what were the details about that, Warner Brothers and Steven Spielberg, etc., and trying to get aspects of the casting right, including Martin Scorsese's contribution, and also how it was a very tough picture to make in terms of the preparation and the care and the craft and the details to prepare. I mentioned earlier with the discussion of the Obayashi documentary here, but there is Nogami mentions how this was it was a tough picture, and a lot of the prep work was really detailed and involved and long term in the process. So, but the results you can see on the screen. So. And I think it's a credit to artists like herself working with Kurosawa and the rest of the crew that it was achieved with such great splendor and grace as it was. So this is a great interview with Teruo Nogami. So please check it out if you can. One of the important voices in terms of getting insights into the way in which Kurosawa and company created these works of art, as well as celebrating the legacy, the long-lasting legacy of Kurosawa with these releases that have occurred on DVD, Blu-ray, and now 4K. So this is the interview with Teruo Nogami, approximately 17 minutes. And then we have another interview. This is Takashi Koizumi. And this is also from 2016. It's approximately 16 minutes, and it's described as the assistant director on Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. Takashi Koizumi worked alongside Kurosawa on the filmmaker's last 5 films. This interview with Koizumi was conducted for the Criterion Collection in Japan in July 2016. So here we have another one-on-one interview, and he does talk about aspects of working with Kurosawa, the reverence he had, also the writing process, the screenplay process, his own contributions in terms of writing, and how Kurosawa would fashion them and provide feedback, etc. And also the ways in which this film, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, Yume, envelops and intertwines aspects of philosophy, Kurosawa's own subjective viewpoint philosophy, psychology. There are aspects of psychology that are mentioned both in terms of how we can read into this type of biographical statement on Kurosawa's life and childhood and memory, but also the psychological implications of the characters that we see here as well, because they aren't empty vessels. They are also living, breathing characters that have their own movements and regrets and pains, as well as joys and celebrations. So that's a great insight on the part of Koizumi and others here. And the aspects of folklore and tradition, memory, feeling, emotion. It's all here enveloped. And again, it has that emblematic quality of a representative work in the Kurosawa oeuvre while also standing on its own. And I think Takashi Koizumi's comments here go so far in embellishing that and describing that much better than I could ever hope to try to achieve from my own standpoint as a fan of Kurosawa's works. We're getting these great comments from Takashi Koizumi. So great interview. Please check it out if you can. This is from 2016, approximately 16 minutes with Takashi Koizumi. And then the supplements end with a trailer. It's another great trailer, so please check it out if you can. So I think my understanding is on the occasion of this new release by Criterion in 2023, we're not getting any quote-unquote new 2023 supplements, but what we are getting are things that we had seen in the previous release, which were great and which are great. And they were packed, and they are packed. I again draw your attention to the wonderful documentary, the 150-minute documentary, which is its own feature film length documentary. So wonderful stuff indeed. So we're getting a packed release. It had already been a packed release, which was great, but still maintaining the integrity of that packed release, including the commentary track as well. So please, please, please check out these supplements if you have not done so already. So now let us turn our attention to some other aspects of this, including the physical media packaging aspects and the booklet as well. So this is the plastic casing for the 2-disc release of Dreams, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. And let me open it up here. It is the plastic casing with the stacked disc perspective. Sorry for the glare there. I hope you can forgive me. But here we have the offering here. Again, the 2 discs here, I have them stacked in this way. The 4K UHD disc is on the top here and has this green color to it. And then on the underside, or the below this, they aren't touching, so that's good, at least as far as I can tell, is the Blu-ray disc, which is, again, similar in design except the color difference. The yellow color used for the Blu-ray disc and then the green color used for the Blu-ray, and I'm sorry, for the 4K UHD disc, excuse me. So green for the 4K UHD, yellow for the Blu-ray disc offering. And as you can see here, there's also the part on this side, which is for the booklet, and I've already removed the booklet for purposes of this video discussion. And so let me just put this back here, and then let me say that for the booklet, which I have right here, it is like we saw in previous Criterion releases. It is the staple booklet, and it has the wonderful a number of writings. So first we have the Bilge Ebiri essay, which is called Quiet Devastation. And again, please watch the film first, but after you've seen the film, you can read this wonderful Ebiri essay. It's really, really great. And it touches on all the points in terms of the background and the lead up of the filmography and the context of Kurosawa's life and film and art, and also the various themes of each of the dreams themselves, these vignettes. Oh, this is a great essay, another great essay. It's great to see this, again, continuing on from previous Criterion releases, as well as what's called the Phantom Final Dream. And this is another great second writing here in the staple booklet, which is originally made up of 11 episodes. The script for Akira Kurosawa's Dreams was whittled down to 9 early in the pre-production process, and it stayed in that form well into filming. At some point, however, what was to be the final dream was jettisoned, and the film took the 8-part structure we know today. The screenplay pages for that 9th dream follow, introduced by Teruo Nogami, who was hired as a script assistant for Kurosawa's Rashomon in 1950 and went on to become an essential part of the director's team and on almost all his subsequent films, including as production manager on this one. Nogami's introduction was translated from the Japanese by Juliet Winters Carpenter. So we have the introduction from Nogami, and then also we have the script, which is also written in English here. So this is so cool. This is really, really quite cool indeed. You know, I should say that when I first gotten this release and just reading about this, when I first discovered about it, it was one of the coolest things in my own Kurosawa journey. So I'm glad to see this being made available. So well done for this. I'm very, very happy about this. So please check it out if you can. This is one of the cool things about the Criterion releases, including this one from 2023. So, yeah, it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened had this quote-unquote 9th dream vignette been included, but it's great to have this information all the same. So this is the booklet. I should point out too that the artwork, this is artwork, as you may know, which is based upon artwork from Kurosawa himself. So it says here for production credits: art director Sarah Habibi, art production coordinator William Brazy, art assistant Julie Sussman. And in fact, this is it's taken from certain aspects of Kurosawa's own art, because Kurosawa himself loved to do these artistic renderings, and that's another very famous aspect of it. So this is great, as well as the booklet, which has a number of stills from the film, from the background production and also from the film itself. So it's great to see. In any event, this is the release or re-release of the film Dreams by the Criterion Collection. It is another reminder of how great this film is. I'm so moved every time I watch this. I'm reminded too of my own life. My mother, I didn't mention this before, but my mother, who's no longer with us, when she was alive, when we'd watch this film and the vignette about Vincent van Gogh came up, she would just, that was her favorite. She loved this film, but that was in particular her favorite. So whenever I revisit this film and that vignette in particular, that dream in particular, I am reminded of that memory of my own, that aspect of my own life, something that once was but no longer is, but something that I can still remember by watching films like Akira Kurosawa's Dream. So in many ways, this could be said to be a type of subjective journey through the landscape of Kurosawa's own life and memory, but also it's in many ways providing the opportunity for viewers like myself to revisit my own sensibilities and memories and things of my own past. So what a great film this is all around. I'm so pleased that it is back again, made available in this alternative option for those who are interested to visit or revisit, as the case may be, this film from the filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, and it is Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. All right, my dear friends, so thank you very much. If you have any comments or thoughts about this film or any other films by Kurosawa or beyond, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. As always, I very much would love to hear what it is you have to say. But until the next video, my dear friends, please continue please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including Dreams, including Kurosawa works, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.